My name is Gretel Garcia Cuba.
And then tell us a little bit about your piece.
My piece is a red tent constructed out of used sweaters that I purchased at a used store. And the concept is, I don't know, it was just sort of a piece that to me kind of represents the body, because our sweaters become our skin in winter and we sort of wear them for protection, the same way the skin functions as protection.
It takes me back to when I was like 5 years old and want to like be able to go in there.
Then I created the strings that are all tied on the inside in a kind of a chaotic way, and that to me just represents like the tearing of the skin.
That's just amazing. I love it.
I like the fact that I could crawl into that piece if I wanted to. It's very visceral, it's very inviting, it's a very inviting piece, and you can see exactly by looking at it how it was made. You can see everything about it, it's an open book. So you almost don't even have to ask the artist any questions about the piece at all, because it's all there for you. So, and not only, I mean, everything down to where she got the sweaters is obvious in the presentation of the piece. So I think it's fabulous, and it fits with the theme really nicely. Like Under the Weather is a physical manifestation as it is a literal manifestation. We're literally walking around under the snow and the sun and the clouds, as well as we are subject to feeling sick or well and whatever it is that you're under the weather. And so when you just take those two ideas and put them together, that's what popped up in my mind was literally, yeah, I mean, it's just very literal. These are not real tattoos. These are Sharpie creations.
You drew them on the people, or you drew them on the photos?
No, I drew them on the people themselves, yeah, not on the photo. No, that wouldn't have been right. There's 2 different people in these 3 different pictures, yeah. I wouldn't even quite call it a filter. This is a setting on the Nikon D70. I set it to take nighttime pictures during the day. It was the daytime and I had a light. With that setting, you get a very orangey tone, and I knew that would happen. It's a warm tone that, yeah, it comes out a lot, and I love it, actually. I think it's really nice. It's very liquid. Thematically, they exist together, but each of them are okay by themselves. They're like a group of friends that get along much better together, but when they're on their own, they're still okay. Under the weather as a theme, yeah. And so of course I've been meditating on this idea of what does that mean and how does that inspire me? And there's a lot of implications, there's a lot of connotation and denotation that comes with this idea. There's, for me, I think a lot about the physicality of feeling sick, literally, and I think that the crutch plays into that, in feeling under the weather. Anna Kamyar. For the show, Under the Weather, I presented a series of 3 black and white photographs taken with a medium format toy camera. Though the images are of tree branches beneath a gray sky, they have no detail in either the shadows or in the highlights. I hope the images communicate themselves to be more about the potentiality of space rather than the forms they represent. When I considered the idea of under the weather, I associated emotions that dealt with a peace or freedom that can be awakened through feelings of melancholy. Having grown up in Michigan, but living in Florida for the past 15 years, I found myself desperately searching for the neutrality of a gray sky to release the intense vibrations that the sun and consequent blue sky give. Specifically, in Miami, gray is a rare blessing that allows colors and forms to stand as they are, without a need to struggle to showcase their beauty. As a consequence of the freedom gray gives my perceptions, I decided to communicate under the weather as a lack of attachment. The tree form becomes a sort of a window or frame through which the negative gray space is emphasized. I hope the images offer an opening for the forms to expand beyond the attachment of representation and still be fully present.
Built this box in a day. It wasn't a big deal. Just kind of, cut the pieces, put it together. This was from the thrift store. Just some old. It's actually an old, some kind of weather, instrument that we tore apart.
So all these different videos, where did you get those from?
Some of them are stock footage. Some of it's stuff I shot. It's some stuff I compiled together.
So let me ask you this. Where do you personally draw the line between interesting art and total nonsense?
I think it goes into the effort. I think it all comes down to the effort, basically. That's what I think.
That's very interesting. That's a very good answer. That's a very good answer. Because this is cool. And it has all the evidence of being total nonsense. And yet, I would feel kind of weird calling it that, and I would feel defensive against anybody who did call it. It's like, and I'm asking myself, why? So yeah, that's interesting. So you bring this to the show, it's not for sale, you're showing it off, it doesn't mean anything. So what's your goal? Why even do this? Why not just sleep?
I'm having fun doing this. I'm just doing this for fun. Frank Wick. I have a history of using found objects, but tend to replicate them myself, changing the scale or simply the context in which they would originally be seen. Images or objects created by man regarding nature tend to have a quirky, even disturbing outlook. We put animals together to act as human surrogates to tap into some aspect of ourselves that we wouldn't allow when using people. What I was looking for was a piece that referenced things occurring within the context of weather and seasonal change and implied how those changes signify an emotional state. The piece is a cast resin, mass-produced object that was purchased at a major retailer and altered slightly. The alteration was to simply remove one of the two birds and place it on the ground in front of the other. In a sense, the one on the floor can be considered dead or dying. The one left on the tree is not able to change the situation, but simply to watch it happen.
I taught myself how to knit for this piece. I really like found wood. I think it has character. Just sort of a combination of textures and warmth versus cold. It's sort of an image of snow, but in a warm way. It's, you know, literally warm because it's knitted, and also the combination of textures is very homey. Was pretty and ugly at the same time. I like contrasting, sort of. This is all, natural wear. I mean, this is all termite ridden, I could barely get the nails in there. It's kind of, the knitting part's still a long time. I think I spent about 2 weeks knitting, and I think maybe 20 minutes nailing it together.
Sure.
Actually, the way I work, I always start with materials first that I want to work with. I let the materials, that sounds so cheesy, like an art thing. I let the materials guide me, but I mean, I really do. I think that if you love the materials, it'll come out in a nice way. I didn't know if I was going to hang it, sideways or long ways, but long ways seemed to make more sense. It kind of looks like snow on a fence or something, The hardest parts about being an artist is knowing when to stop, when to say the piece is finished, because I had to be finished I looked at it in a different way and realized I really do like it like this instead of adding a lot more.
So what do you feel?
Well, what do you think about when you see this piece?
I think I was instantly drawn to it because I love the knitting, because I attempt to knit sometimes and I'm horrible at it. And I have a lot of friends that knit hats, and it reminds me of their winter hats, which are the most wonderful, warm, comforting things that I can think of in the winter. And I kind of feel like these knittings are protecting the wood or warming the wood that would be cold and drafty in the winter and, you know, needs protection. And so it's just kind of warming. At the same time, the wood is cold and kind of harsh, but the knit pieces kind of overtake that and blanket it in a way and warmth and coziness. So that's what I don't know, that's what I get from it, and I like the color palette. It's not, yeah.
So my name is Mark Salha, and this is my piece. It's based off of Slum City, which is the wall city in Hong Kong, and from there it just kind of like mutated into something else. It's all made of scratch, except for the posters that kind of like all around. Like these are like digital photos, original Mao Zedong political posters. All around here, as well here. The idea is kind of like the present day, which is like 2007, but in the past, which is talking about allegory. Where you had like the sketches on the bottom here. And then as like it got built. You know what? Film me and him. Come on.
That's right. A little bit. Why you went from a huge imagery to subtle imagery? I still see it.
Yeah, I mean it's more realistic. I mean, like usually, like when you have like you put posters on the wall, you put a bunch of them. You don't put one.
The answer is chaos begins with shadows.
With shadows.
Shadows. Chaos. The full development of chaos can only be found in the development from shadow to full form, and perhaps not function, but definitely form. And what you can say is this is the edge of your universe, and it winds up in death. It's a picture of death coming out of the shadows.
Hold on a second. Is that just something cool you like to say, or is that something you really think?
No, that's what he thinks.
See the hole in his head?
Yeah.
Okay, that's death.
Walter Garcia. The weather is a natural phenomenon which affects all living things that inhabit the earth. As humans, we have the ability to affect and control most of our surroundings. It is through our direct and sometimes negligent actions that forces of nature turn against us. This piece is intended to address many of the issues which affect our daily lives. One is the idea of the magic pill that will relieve all that ails us. Instead of trying to alter the weather, ironically it may be possible to strengthen ourselves against it. Also, given the current importance that pharmaceutical companies play in our daily life, it is only a matter of time before these types of remedies would be available on the market. Nothing would be better or painless as these ideal solutions for our fast-paced, pill-popping lifestyle than the all-weather vitamin chest in every person's home.
Hi, I'm Michael Luna, and this is my piece, Snowy Day. I've been experimenting with these ideas of vibrating matter, different liquids and different solids, with sound. I work with sound a lot in different ways. Once we had the idea for this show of being under the weather or having to do with the weather, I had this idea that if I were to fill this with something that looks like snow, that it could be like a little snow field or like a snowstorm of some kind. Really the key to this was finding this little guy who looks like he's running through the snowstorm and it's just the right proportion. And at that point it was really, that was the piece, was that there's this man, he's a businessman, he's in a suit, he's trying to get home after a long day at work. And it's just a terrible storm out, and he's having trouble getting home. The storm sort of pushes him around. He's not fixed in one place, you know, so it's sort of like just pushes him. He sort of moves with vibrations, and he's trying to get somewhere. He's running as hard as he can, but he's sort of at the whim of nature and of the storm. So that's kind of how I wanted to fit this into the frame of the show, and I think it's pretty successful that way. So if you look underneath, there's a CD player, and that's running basically a very low-frequency sine wave. In the very low bass registers. It's even so low you can barely hear it. There is a speaker cone underneath here to which the Petri dish is physically affixed. So there's no space, it's not vibrating air before it gets to it. It's physically moving this Petri dish up and down at very low frequencies, 40 to 70 cycles per second. So that's much below your range of hearing, but enough to make this liquid sort of pick it up and move. It's just these waves that are bouncing back and forth and up and down around. If you watch, when I induce other waves into it, you'll be able to see the other waves still. And they see that I'm inducing waves to travel from the inside to the outside. And they're still there, they're still moving, they're just interacting with the other waves.
Oh, my name is Frank Force. You get these standing waves like that. It's cool. Yeah. I like it.
It's not the most in-depth intellectual piece, but I think it's pretty fun to watch, and that's the important part.
My name is Holly Sabin, and how I interpret Under the Weather is how it relates to your body. This is my piece, it's cast plaster. This side of the piece is actually a casting of a portion of my body. In the winter, I personally feel like just kind of like a icy fragment of myself. I've worked with body castings for 5 years. And I've worked in plaster for 5 years.
I noticed this is pretty kind of like broken piece out. But that was an accident. This is a piece that broke off, or or is this supposed to mean something? Is it like?
I mean, certainly it connotes the process of working. I mean, you don't just kind of like cast a sheer piece and voila, it's done. I mean, there's actually a lot of carving work that goes into a plaster sculpture. A lot of carving with chisel and hammer, and like these are the kind of the breaks that allow you to kind of see a little bit inside. And maybe some of them are smoothed over, because maybe some of them are still kind of trying to keep you out, and some of them are just breaking and letting you in. And this is an aspect I've worked with in my art a lot, is that there is an inside and an outside. There is the side that you show to people, or the side that's easily visible, and then there's the inside, which is a little bit more messy. There's the literal interpretation of that, but then there's also the metaphorical, absolutely. Things that you don't necessarily share. And, you know, at the same time, there's space that's occupied by the inside that's vacant. Like, you know, so you're willing to kind of take in more things. There is this messiness that you're not necessarily willing to share, or that's not just on the surface. If you take a large ice block and you just throw it against the ground and how it just shatters, I mean, that's kind of how I physically sometimes feel just going out to the supermarket to get something in the winter when it's horribly cold.
you.